out.
Hello, it's Danielle Mercurio, and it's also 2020. Hi, how's this new year going for you? Lots of mixed emotions, huh? Lots of feelings. That's what happens at the start of any new relationship, right? We're kind of in this space of like, ooh, it's new, it's exciting. It feels like it's hitting all the spots that I want to on paper and under the sheets. And I think I'm here for it. Yet, I'm noticing some red flags. I'm noticing it's bringing up some things. I'm noticing before I can fully commit, I have to make my way through these blocks first. Yes. Understandable, my friend. Understandable. At the start of anything new, this is how it goes. But honestly, we wouldn't want it any other way. Many of us fear change, yet want change. We fear change that may be harmful. We fear change that will put us out of our comfort zone. Yet that is the very thing that will set us free and create the kind of change that we want. We say that we want change that is exciting, invigorating, aligned, fulfilling, passionate, resourceful, on point in your purpose. However, that is a necessity for you that comes from the leaving of the comfort zone. Did that make sense? That felt weird the way that it came out. The use of the word necessity was a little like ma. But what I'm getting at essentially is we all crave change, yet we also all resist change. Why is that? Why do we want what we can't have and we can't have what we want? Why did we allow ourselves to be put in this dilemma? It's a crisis. It's a personal crisis. And the only person that is holding you back is you. And so 2020 is the realization that if you want change, then yes, you will need to change. And yes, it may require some work, some consistency. However, it can be executed and delivered and received to you in a way that feels really good and on purpose. And so I want to take this time to talk about this notion of releasing expectations, because it is through releasing expectations that we can soften our fear around change and do it in a way that is more seamless, that is more aligned, and is more fulfilling. We typically want change because, again, there's a lot of promise within that, right? Promise is exciting. It's sexy. The promise of a new relationship, the promise of a new job, the promise of a new home, a new city, a new outfit, a new skincare product, a new item you found at the grocery store. There is a reason we invest in promise. We invest in promise because we're excited by the potential. We're excited by what the results will be. We're excited by the solution. We're excited by the transformation. However, sometimes we're not patient and dedicated enough to be in the promise to see it through. Because a promise is just a promise if we don't bring our piece into it as well. And so it's really important as we start to embark on these feelings of new year, new me, new decade, new promises, that we also have a plan to see it through. Step one is investing in that promise, investing in that goal, investing in that product, investing in the idea of I'm going to change. And then we've got to allow ourselves to ease into that change. I was texting with a friend earlier, and she's really excited about a job that she really is manifesting. However, it's not up to her to continue to make it happen. It's also not up to her to continue to surrender. It's a hybrid of the two. I texted her back and I said, that's amazing. Keep making and letting it happen. And she was like, you're right. I got to keep doing both. And that's what we've got to keep doing right now. So we got to have that dance of letting it happen and making it happen. That's a huge theme for this year. And so to make it happen, we have to realize what we do have control over, where we can be dedicated, where we can be devoted, and where we can let go of beliefs and fears and things that rock our system that don't serve us. And it really comes down to the projections that we get from the outer world that we perceive, the expectations that we have to fulfill. However, that's not true. You don't need to continue to fulfill expectations that were delivered to you on behalf of someone else that's not in accordance to who you are. But we've lost sight of that a little bit, right? We get so buried in expectations. We get so buried in what we're seeing online. We get so buried by social media. We get so buried by our friends and our family. We're coming off the holiday season. If you're listening in IRL, and you may have been in a whirlwind of other people's projections. And based on that, you had a choice if you were going to show up based on their projection and fulfill a role, or if you were going to go against their projection and not meet their expectations, which, either way can be a little bit complicated. And I was kind of faced with that a little bit too, with certain dichotomies of my family. I very much adore my family. I love them very much. They're a very interesting, lovely, out there gang. Amazing. Great. However, there are certain components of the way that they look at the world that's not in alignment to the way that I look at the world. And that is okay. However, I was trying to find a way to somehow be able to fulfill those expectations so I don't feel like such an alien or a weirdo or out there, to make myself feel better. And that's not what you do. It's just not. And I realize I've been doing it for too long. And I go through phases where I'm able to get out of it and then I get kind of sucked back in again. And I think returning to the East Coast 2 years ago, it was a little bit easier to get sucked back in again. And East Coast mentality is very tied to a lot of my family beliefs, just kind of that like structure, support, partnership, kind of doing the more day in, day out life. Now, here's the thing. Who knows if they really believe that or not? That's my perception. My perception is that my family believes in a certain way of living your life. And then I, based on what I think they think, allow that to be projected on me. And then I create an expectation that I have to fulfill to be able to show up for that. And it gets very layered. So we want to break down the layers. And so when we break down the layers of expectations of others, we have to see that, first of all, what we think is happening may or may not be true. I think this is how my family thinks, and I think this is how I'm supposed to show up for it, but I could be completely wrong. For all I know, my family could care less. For all I know, my intuition is jacked. For all I know, nobody really cares. And when I look at it from that perspective, I'm like, oh, there's freedom in that. There's freedom in not knowing. There's freedom in not really ever being able to understand another person, because I'm never going to be able to fully satisfy someone else. Even if they told me point blank, this is what I believe in, we still don't know, because we don't know if what belief systems they're coming off of, who ingrained them with that, what projections they came through from that piece of things. And so when you recognize the fact that you have complete freedom from a way another person thinks, then you have a choice. And from that choice, you can start to create your own reality. Now, that being said, we still want to respect what the other person is doing. We still want to honor and acknowledge what's going on. Cool, right? Like, let's like, that's fine. I used to, again, like to point the finger and be like, well, this is bogus, or this is blah, 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 or this is wrong, or, what you believe isn't right, or this isn't just, or blah, blah, blah. But again, they could just throw it right back at me. And who's to say who's right, who's wrong? We don't know. Again, there's freedom in that. There's freedom in not knowing what technically is going on. And so nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody really knows what they're thinking, what's right, what's wrong, bada bada. So if that's the case, we have the freedom. And from that freedom, we have a choice. And from that choice, we have a promise, a new beginning, an opportunity. Where do we want to go from there? And that's kind of what I came to the conclusion to. And I released a lot of shit that I have been holding on to the past couple of years around this notion of, especially around partnership and what family should look like. And when I say family, kind of that notion of creating my own family and putting a lot of external pressure on myself, because I felt like I needed to go about looking for a partner in a certain way. And I felt like, given my age, I'm over 35, that, well, I'm just 36. Some of you are like, when she says over 35, does that mean she's 39 and using that? No, I'm 36. Not that it really matters, right? Who really knows if we're telling time right? I could technically be 72 for all I know. Maybe we've just been doing the math wrong. Regardless, I felt like at my quote unquote alleged age of 36, that family partnership should be like prime time now, right? Like that's just part of it. And I do want partnership and I do want family, though deep down I've never been in a rush per se. I've kind of always known it's been out there. And when it comes to the notion of your biological clock is ticking, I've always been very drawn to the idea of adoption and foster care. So my biological clock isn't ticking in that way. I'm not really worried about the status of my womb and procreation, because I feel like there's beautiful opportunities to start a family outside of the womb and bring in that energy to them in another way. So I never really felt like I was in a rush, but there was a part of me that was like feeling like maybe I'm incomplete. Maybe I need to figure this chapter out, and maybe that will even help me with my business and what I do for a living, which is kind of a backwards notion. And I realized that part of that was a notion that I was taking on by a projection that I felt like was outside of me. I felt like there were a lot of voices around me saying, this is what you need to do. This is how you should show up. When are you going to do X already? When are you going to do Y already? When are you going to stop being single already? When are you going to, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. And it's really exhausting. It's really exhausting to try to keep up with the expectations that you are perceiving from the outside world, because you'll never figure it out. You won't. And honestly, for the most part, the majority of it doesn't matter. And I finally had that realization. I finally let myself off the hook from feeling like I had to keep trying to make my life fit a certain mold while also fitting the mold that I wanted. I wanted to do both, right? I wasn't afraid of living my life as I live it, but I wanted to keep living my life and my soul purpose while also at the same time living somebody else's idea of a soul purpose. So I was doing two lanes simultaneously. And let me tell you, that's exhausting. It's exhausting to live out your dreams while also trying to make sure that you're catering to everybody else's. Really hard to do. Okay. You think like it's a lot of multitasking, and it creates a lot of stagnancy. It creates a lot of jumping around, and it creates a lot of waiting. Because it was like, okay, my dreams are moving forward. I'm getting the green light, but all the things I'm trying to do based on other people's expectations aren't moving forward. So let me wait on that for a little bit. Let me see if I can get some more evidence. Let me try to get some more proof. Let me try to do this. Let me wait. Exhausting. And so my energy was becoming more stagnant. I was becoming bored. That was, I'd say, if one of the words to describe my last year, well, it was very fun and expansive. See, here's what's interesting. When I look at what I was doing in alignment with my soul purpose, fun, exciting, expansive, curious, opening, awakening. Then when I look at the flip side of all the things I was trying to do to meet the quote unquote society expectation, bored. And what did I do when I was bored? Sabotage, eat late night, pick on food, start to undermine my success, start to question my ability. I started to become the person that I was trying to appease. And so then self-criticism started to come into play, and I was becoming self-critical of my dream path. And so when my dream path was doing its thing and I was all here for it and confident and ready to go, roaring like the cheetah I am, all of a sudden I became this self-critical, sabotage, bored, defensive, tired, nitpicky individual, which isn't me. It's just not. Like, so in my head about things, losing sleep, becoming anxious, that isn't me. Not to say I don't have moments of sabotage or overcritical states of being, like of course, but not to the degree that I was having. And I just finally, at the end of this year, I got really sick at the end of October. My stomach literally shut down on me because of all the stress it was being brought upon by living this dual life of being, quote unquote, the archetype of my society and family and peers, and then being the archetype of me, Danielle Mercurio, and everything that she's moving forward. I literally shut down my stomach. I shut down the vagus nerve because I was putting it in flight or flight so much. There were so many days where I was on such highs and lows, where I wasn't treating it properly with my health. Some days I'm like, that's the thing too, even with food. Now that I think about it, I'm so glad we're talking about this. With food, there are things that I would eat that I didn't even want to eat, but I was eating because it was like, I didn't know I just was like, I'm bored. I need to like sabotage myself, but I don't want this. Danielle Mercurio on the Dream Path doesn't want this. Why are you eating it? Why are you doing this? But I felt like I didn't have a choice. I felt like I was just stuck. And so in the end of October, I got the flu, and the flu triggered my stomach to shut down. And it shut down for over a week. I couldn't eat. And then I had to spend another 6 weeks rebuilding my stomach. Okay. Our stomach is our solar plexus. Our solar plexus is our confidence. It's our core. It's our courage. It's our ability to identify who we are and how we're showing up. Don't you know that's why that shut down? Of course, that's the part of me that shut down, because what was I doing? I was creating too much. I was creating an extra identity that didn't serve me and clearly doesn't serve anybody else either. It doesn't even serve the people that I was trying to serve based on their expectations. Because here's the thing. If you spend your life trying to please others, if you spend your life trying to max out on the expectations that others have, they will never be satisfied. Because guess what? Guess what? A lot of it is all the voice in your head that you're believing is coming from them. And that voice will never be satisfied. So when you shut them down, you're starting to shut down that voice in your head that doesn't serve you. And I recognize that. And I recognize I'm shutting down this voice that isn't mine. This voice that is taken over my being, that wants to judge everything, that is overly critical, that has to observe nonstop, that is conservative, that is a prude. Oh my God, you know how much sex I wasn't having because of that voice? Like, no, thank you. Like, no, I'm a sexual person. But again, there was a part of me that felt like I couldn't be because of that other track. You feel me? So like, because of that other track, like I couldn't, talk sexually. Like if you hang out with me, like I like to make sex jokes. Like I do the stand-up comedy. When I'm going on dates, like I don't want to wait 6 weeks to sleep with you. I don't want to wait 4 dates to freaking go to second base. Like I don't, I want to just follow my intuition and have fun and trust that I'm not going to get goo crazy over some dude because I gave him a hand job on the 3rd date. Like, you know what I mean? So like, I had to honor that that's who I am, and it still makes me a good person. And that has nothing, and that voice that's telling me like, where is this coming from? I like turn it back and I'm like, where are you coming from? Where are you coming from that you know how to live life, that you know how to do it straight? Excuse me? Excuse me? Who made you, the reigning force of the universe, right? So we've got to call out that voice and be like, excuse me, where's your credentials? I'm sorry, what have you accomplished? Because here's the thing, no one will ever have enough credentials or validations to be able to prove that they are better than you. Only God can do that. Only Source can do that. Only nature can do that. And nature will do it in a way that is so ease, so light, so fun, so loving. So we want to start to really look at, okay, this year, before I even get all gung-ho on my goals and what I'm going to accomplish, because astrologically, let me tell you, 2020 is a long game, okay? I've been doing a lot of readings for people for 2020, and everybody's getting the long game. No one, I can't tell you anyone I've read for that's literally an overnight success. No one has pulled cards, or I've looked at their charts and I'm like, oh my gosh, like everything's going to happen in the first 2 months. It is literally a buildup. It is such a buildup, and astrologically, it just is. Okay, so I want us to receive that. 2021 is going to move a lot faster, actually, if you play the long game in 2020. If you are steady and play the long game in 2020, you will see the rewards in 2021. I am telling you, I promise you. But 2020 is, we're here for it. And so before you worry about how you're going to be an overnight success, before you worry about how you're going to make 10K next week, before you worry about how you're going to prove to everybody that you're the next best thing since apparently sliced bread, which I think we need to come up with a new logo. Like, who's the next best thing since Vanderpump Rules? That would be something I could get behind. So before we worry about all of that, we want to worry, quote unquote, around where we're still holding on to expectations that aren't ours. What are things that you're expecting yourself to do that you don't even want to do. And it may even be in something you love. Like for me, for example, I could take parts of my current career that I love, that is on the dream path, and I could look at some of the things I'm doing that I felt that I have to do because I said that I would do it and it's part of my dream path and it's got me where I am, then maybe I don't want to do anymore. Maybe I'm going to take a look at that and sit down and say, you know what? I think I'm good on this piece. I think I've evolved. I think I've been able to share it in a really beautiful way. And now I want to kind of explore here. And while some people may have an expectation and may want me to stay in this other realm, I'm going to keep moving forward because I know that's right for me. And I'm going to set that expectation for myself to move on. And then also look at, for myself, other expectations like the partnership, family that I was letting be projected on me that I also don't want. Not being too sexual, right? That was another one I was just letting, but I become a prude. I get cobwebs down there. When you go over a month without doing anything down there, it just doesn't work for me, and I can only masturbate so much, right? So there's that. So sit down and really get clear on what expectations am I holding on to? Whether, and literally don't even worry about who they're from, you, someone else, Instagram, a meme, it doesn't matter. Sit down and say, where do I hold expectations? And then write them all out. And then when you look at them, circle the ones you want to keep. Okay. I have an expectation that I am going to be, and that I currently am, a successful speaker. That is an expectation that I expect from my own self. Other expectations I have that don't serve me are that I have to like watching Fox News. Nope. That's not one. That doesn't even that's not a great example. I'm bringing it back to family. They like to watch Fox News. But I would say another expectation is an expectation I have actually on myself a lot is that my body has to look a certain way in order to be successful, that I have to be a certain weight. That's an expectation I've been carrying for a long time, that I have to be a certain weight to be successful. And if I go under that, even better. If I go over that, you better get your shit together and figure something out. That's an expectation that was never mine. I never cared about that. But I was projected it, and I let myself be projected it because it had something to do with my value, my worth, and that mattered to me. And because that mattered to me, I wanted to make sure that I was meeting the expectations that I needed to. But that's wrong. I'm crossing that one out. And I'm just going to keep crossing out any expectation that doesn't serve me at my core and circle all the expectations that do. Okay? So sit down and do that. Write out all the expectations you've been fed. And then from that space, go to a place of allowing yourself to pick the ones that feel good, leave the ones that you're like, you know what, that can go now. So then from there, once you start to clear out those expectations, I want you to kind of go on a journey of exploring and kind of starting to see where some of this is coming from, right? Like, where do the expectations that I crossed out come from? What can I do to not give them my power so much? What can I do to create a stronger sense of freedom from not having to be in this space anymore? Okay, that's a big one too. We create these little prisons for ourselves because we tie ourselves to expectations that don't matter. You don't have to spend your whole life doing things that you don't want to do. You don't have to spend your whole life doing things you don't want to do. You can break free. And maybe you can't break free overnight. I'm not telling you to quit your job if it doesn't serve you. I'm not telling you to leave that relationship. I'm not telling you to change course automatically. But I am telling you that you don't have to keep doing the things you don't want to do. And this is a time to start to make a plan. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. But the only way you're going to do that is if you release the expectations that come to you as a projection of what's stopping you. It's all fear-based. It's all your fear saying, no, you can't do that. Here's why. Here's an example. How many of you have had moments where you've started something new and fear will come up and then it will showcase itself to you in someone else that will dumb it down or tell you not to do it? Yeah, that's convenient, isn't it? Oh, well, I really wanted to do this, but then, I talked to my Talked to my dad about it, and now I'm not sure. I talked to a friend about it, and now I don't know, right? Something to think about. So allow yourself to kind of start to really go on this exploratory journey. And then from there, once we start to release these expectations, once we start to release the hold that they have on us, and we start to see that we have another choice, this is where we become unstoppable. This is where we really create freedom. This is where we create more love, more fulfillment, more joy, more things that really serve us. And that's where we start to get the creativity. I'm not as creative when I'm trying to do these two lanes. I literally look back on my life and I'm like, oh my goodness, how was I able to accomplish so much while living out my dreams while also living out the expectations of everybody else? It's exhausting and it limits your creativity. It limits your ability to think outside the box. It limits your potential to do what is in alignment for you. And so by ruling out the expectations, by starting to say energetically, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think. I don't have to do what you think. I can do whatever I want. And starting to say no to those things that don't meet your expectations, you start to create space. And it might feel weird at first. It might feel a little bit lonely. It might feel a little bit unfulfilling. You might not actually know what to do with yourself at first, but that's okay. We want to kind of keep that going for a little bit. And then once you keep that going for long enough, you're going to actually feel a little shift. It's really interesting how it happens. Usually what happens to me when I'm going through this process, I'll have a really boring weekend. Maybe boring's not the right word. Lonely weekend, solo weekend, where I'm not really doing much. And it's really interesting because no one really reaches out to me to hang out or want to do anything. There's no real events on my calendar. And whenever that happens, I'm like, oh, this is a shift weekend. This is a weekend where I'm shifting. There's a reason why no one's reaching out. There's a reason why nothing's going on. And there's not much on TV. There's literally, I'm just supposed to hang out and just be and just kind of be in this neutral space. And then it's from there that then all of a sudden I'll feel a shift. And it usually will happen Sunday night or Monday afternoon. And all of a sudden I feel a little bit happier, or I feel a little bit more at ease, or all of a sudden I'll start to get these ideas, these intuitive hits, these downloads that start to come through. And they feel really juicy and they feel really exciting and I feel really unstoppable. And I feel less of the fear. I feel less of the ego and I feel more of the joy. I feel more of the excitement and I feel more of the energy to move it forward. And that's because the energetic space has been created. And once I cleared out all the stuff that I wasn't feeling, this new creative space came to be. Okay. If you're, another way is just to have more fun. What are things that you're doing that allow you to be creative, that allow you to have a good time? And it doesn't mean you have to invest in a hobby and start, taking a ceramics class. It could be just, doing more things with your friends, hosting parties, doing something that just feels fulfilling in another way that you enjoy, that maybe doesn't even have results. Maybe it's not a solution-oriented hobby or creative idea. That can help, open you up as well. And then, as you're staying in your own lane, just noticing when you're getting self-critical. It's so easy for us to do that. And we're in an age of information right now where information technology is the number one way we're receiving. We're receiving more from technology than we are from human, tangible humans, I'm getting it on with my phone more than my phone has gotten more fingers all over it than my own body. You know what I mean? So we want to still stay in our own lane within that. We want to recognize technology as a beautiful thing that allows us to stay innovative and informed and resourceful. But we also want to notice when it's starting to create an expectation or a judgment or diluting or confusing the way that we show up and the way that we want to show up. Those ideas that come through you after that solo weekend, you go on Instagram, guess what? That's sabotage. And you go down the rabbit hole, you're going to find all the ways that maybe you should do it differently as opposed to doing it for you, by you. So that's a big piece of it, staying in our own lane in this process and trusting that the answers will come through as we continue to move forward. And you know what? It may be a little bit rocky. There may be moments where, you might hit a bump. That's okay. That's part of the process. I think we get overly self-critical, especially if you're on a self-help or spiritual journey, because we feel like if I'm not positive all the time, if I didn't manifest everything I wanted, if life isn't completely joyful at every moment, I'm doing it wrong. But you're not. Having a spiritual spirit experience, being on a self-help journey, is just being with yourself, being in your spirit, however it may be. If you're angry that day, great, you just had a spiritual experience. If you didn't get what you wanted, great, you just had a spiritual experience. Okay? Like it's the same thing. Getting something you want is actually the same thing as not getting something that you want. Okay? So if we can start to look at it from that perspective, then it starts to become a game. And that's kind of how I've been looking at life lately. I'm like, oh, it's a game. Like, okay, I went on this date and this happened and then it created this outcome. Huh. Interesting. Now I'm going to go on this day. I'm going to do something a little different. And then it created this outcome. Oh, neat. Cool. Like I can't go wrong. Like you can't go wrong in this path because there's always kind of a choose your own adventure thing that's happening. And no matter what, it's always spiritual. But we get really hard on ourselves when it comes to like manifesting and, seeing how other people are doing it and feeling like that's how we have to do it too. It's like, no, no, no. Honor who you are. Trust in what you want. Create the space and the freedom to try things out. And trying things out, boom, that's you immersed in spirituality. That's you on a path of personal development. That's you evolving and growing. It is. It's the only way. It's the only way. Nature is always reorganizing itself and adapting. Same for you. You're always reorganizing and adapting when you're on this path. And hey, maybe you don't like that, but you know what? Once you're awake, you can't go back to sleep. That's just how this works. It just is, And like when I think about it, I don't really want to go back to being ignorant. I don't really want to go back to walking around with the lights off because when I was going around walking around with the lights off, I was really in my head. I was really overcritical. I was really running the projection show of other people's expectations. So you know what? I'd rather be here for it and trying and getting really excited when I hit my wins and then being really curious when I hit my lows. When you're playing a board game Monopoly and you get to go around the track and you get to collect 200, awesome, I did it. Here's my $200. What am I going to do with it this time, this go around? And maybe you'll monetize it and you'll maximize it and maybe you'll lose it all. All right, but you still get to go around again and again and again. And there will always be that $200 waiting for you. So how can you start to look at your life that way for 2020? How can you look at your goals and the things that you want to pursue based on your own expectations, based on your own curiosity, based on your own understanding that this is a long game? However, it will happen, and more satisfaction and more fulfillment is always guaranteed. And there's always more than enough to go around. And there's always that notion of you can do anything you want. And what other people think, okay. If you buy into it, cool. If you don't, you don't have to. It's not a big deal. That's the thing. I used to feel guilty for not buying into other people's beliefs. Oh, well, this is how they live their life, and I feel guilty that I don't live it that way. Or I feel like maybe I'm acting too spoiled, or I'm acting high maintenance. No, I'm just acting like myself, and I'm just honoring my needs. And that's just enough. So how can you let yourself be just enough? How can you allow yourself to be just in what you love? How can you allow yourself to just surround yourself with people that get it? And how can you allow yourself to just be okay with giving it a whirl, with trying it out, with going around the sun one more time and knowing that every time we do, we get to pass go and collect 200. So as we move into this year, I really want you to honor this. Maybe releasing expectations is going to be a theme for you. Maybe you're going to start to notice a little bit more about where you're allowing projections to come into your life. Whatever it may be, I really wanted this show today, this episode, to be an opportunity for you to explore this. And if you're feeling it, you're here for it, you know what to do. You're going to repost it on the Instagram. You're going to tag the Danielle Mercurio Show. And you're going to go out there and you're going to live your life on your terms. Because I know that you can, and I want you to. I believe in you. You're amazing. Thank you for listening. And happy freaking new decade.